The first Beit HaMikdash. The Beit HaMikdash was destroyed, the first one was destroyed by the Babylonians in the year 586 before the Common Era. So over 2,500 years ago. It was destroyed by the Babylonians, and the prophet Yirmiyahu is speaking about the destruction of the temple, of the Beit HaMikdash, but also of the cities in the land of Israel, the mass murders, and the mass starvation that comes from this. Afterwards, there's just destruction. And as a result of this, the Babylonians destroying the Beit HaMikdash, in addition to that, there was mass people exiled from Israel to the land of Babel, where the Babylonians were, modern day Iraq. And the Megillah speaks about, starting with the word Eikhah. The word Eikhah is coming from the word how, of just almost like it's translated as alas. It's a word of disbelief, a word of just expressing how on earth could such a thing have happened. We were the most powerful nation, the Beit HaMikdash built by Shlomo HaMelech, the most powerful, wisest king, and this came to an end. And as we're seeing it and reflecting it, Yirmiyahu HaNavi, through prophecy, is writing about the disbelief of the destruction, but also explaining in detail how our friends or so-called friends didn't come to help us. We were left all alone to ourselves, and the enemy just destroyed us, and there was nothing we can do. There was nothing we can do. It's striking that some of the commentary that's brought from the text very much reminds us of some of the events that occurred last year on October 7th. I mentioned this past Shabbat. On Tisha Be'Av, we're commemorating the destruction of the first Beit HaMikdash in the year 586 before the Common Era, and also the destruction of the second Beit HaMikdash. Hundreds of years later, on the same date, Tisha Be'Av, in the year 68 of the Common Era. That one was destroyed by the Greeks. And the Romans, and it was destroyed by the Romans hundreds of years later on the same exact date. Chachamim tell us this date of Tisha B'Av is a day known of destruction, because this is when we've had our destruction in the past. And not just that, Chachamim tell us that this also went all the way back to in the desert, and Am Yisrael said they did not want the land of Israel. They said that on Tisha B'Av. And because of that, Hashem said, when there's destruction, and they're suffering and crying about Tisha Be'Av, about the land of Israel, it's going to happen on Tisha Be'Av. And so that's the connection of the past. But this year, Tisha Be'Av is different. This year it has to be different, because Tisha Be'Av is not just the Beit HaMikdash, but it's commemorating all national mourning that we experience as a nation. And this year is different, because when the text tells us that there are people that come and they mass murder, we understand it in a different way this year. In a way that we didn't understand last year at this point. When the text speaks about people being taken bashevi, taken captive, we understand it in a different way this year that we didn't understand last year. When the text speaks about how women back then were raped and taken advantage of, and there was no one able to defend them, we understand that in a different way because of what we experienced as a nation on October 7th. We are not just experiencing the Tisha Be'Av, about the past of what happened in Beit HaMikdash. We're also commemorating all of the destruction and the suffering and the tragedies that Am Yisrael has had since then until now, until this very past year, until this very day, when there are nations and there are people and groups that are vowing to destroy Am Yisrael. So part of our job is, number one, to think about the past of the Beit HaMikdash, but also to think about the future. And so what we'll do tonight is we're going to read the Book of Eikhah now. And the Book of Eikhah is Yirmiyahu's depiction and telling over the story of the destruction of the first Beit HaMikdash. Later on, I'm going to introduce, we're also going to read a kinah. A kinah is a poem that is written about the city of Be'eri, of what happened on October 7th. So that's something we're going to do about connecting what happened many years ago in the Beit HaMikdash. There were very different events, but they were both extreme tragic events, and we're going to speak about both of them. Just to give you a little bit of background of the Book of Eikhah, it's written in 5 chapters. The Book of Eikhah is written by Yirmiyahu in 5 chapters, written with an acrostic meaning it's going Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Daled. One of the chapters has triplets, where it's Aleph, 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 Bet, 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 and so on and so forth. And the book, as you read, I encourage you to take in English, and to read, look at the English, try to feel and try to see the destruction that he's depicting, and try to think about how this is not something that is so far from us, and that it's something that we as a nation have experienced many times. The very end, which is a theme of the Kinot, it's a theme of the Book of Eikhah, is that we go through destruction and we take the experience of the destruction and put it in words. By putting the destruction in words, we have an opportunity to relive it and to experience the destruction and the tragedies that we had in the past. We get to relive it. And the text ends off with a hopeful twist to it. At the very end of the Book of Eikhah, in the 5th chapter, there is an acknowledgement that all of this happened because of our sins. Nafla ateret roshenu, oy nalanu ki chatam. We acknowledge that on one hand, while we're experiencing and reliving and speaking about the tragedies, to help us heal from the tragedies, we also acknowledge and understand that there's more that we can do as a nation. And as it ends up, it says, Ata Adonai le'olam teshev kisachal ador v'ador. But God, no matter how bad we are and we've acted, you are everlasting, and you are lama lanetzach tishkachenu. You are the God that's never changing. So if we've done something wrong, we want to do teshuvah, to come back to you, because we know that your hand is waiting for us to come back. And that's in fact how it ends. Hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva chadesh yameinu kekedem.